Hi, I'm Andy from Roland. We're here today at the DJ shop in Southampton and we're going to take a look at the Roland DJ-707M Serato DJ Pro controller. So this is the Roland DJ-707M. It is a 4-channel Serato DJ Pro controller. It's got quite an interesting story behind this. So Roland worked with a large number of DJ associations around the world to find out what kind of features were really important to mobile and event DJs. And we've come up with this, with the Roland DJ-707M. So it's a really small and compact Serato DJ Pro controller, but it's still got 4 channels. One of the big things really is the build quality on it is really high. So we've got a full metal mixer, metal on the crossfader, brushed aluminium on here. It only weighs 3.5 kilograms, so if you're taking it out to a gig, it's really nice and easily portable. If you're taking it on public transport, it's actually, if you're familiar with our DJ range, it's only a tiny little bit bigger than the DJ-202, and it also fits in the bag for that, which is cool. As I say, it's a 4-channel Serato DJ Pro controller. It does come with a full license of Serato DJ Pro. But we have quite a number of unique features which make it really suited for the mobile DJ market. So we're just going to have a quick look through all of those and what they can do. So for most DJs, a lot of this is going to be quite familiar already. So as I say, it is a 4-channel mixer in the middle on here. We've got a trim control for each channel, 3-band EQ, which is a kill EQ. So if you put them all the way down, it will wipe out the track. We also have a built-in hardware filter control. And each one has its own fader and a really nice crossfader at the bottom here. You've got outputs for output levels, for your master, for your booth, for a zone output, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and also for the sampler. And at the top on here, you can see we can select which source we're coming from. So if you wanted, you could have it all running from PC for 4 different tracks from your Serato on your computer. Or if you wanted to, you can set them online. So this does support Serato DVS. If you buy the Serato DVS vinyl license, you can mix with control vinyl. Or if you wanted to, you can use it as a standalone mixer if you're just using actual vinyl records. So that's not using it with Serato, but you can use it standalone in that capacity. We also, on channel 3 and channel 4, we have different options for TR and oscillator, which again we'll talk about in a little bit. On each of the decks on here, it is so we have a really nice feeling platter on here. We have quick access to the effects in Serato and a really good control for the top on here. We have buttons to flick between the decks. And down we have our standard features that you'd expect on a normal Serato controller, things for like hot cues, for our looping, for a slicer, and also to access the sampler that's in Serato. So a lot of these you'll probably be familiar with if you're familiar with DJ controllers, but there's quite a few other things that are a bit more unique, so let's talk about those now. Okay, so the first quite unique feature about the DJ-707M, so this was sort of the #1 requested feature from event DJs and mobile DJs of what they wanted to, is that we have actually got 2 sound cards built into it. So on the back of the machine you've got 2 dedicated USB ports, and you can see on both decks on here we have an A and a B switch to flip between those 2 USB connections. The reason why this is really good is a lot of event DJs said that when they were doing functions, obviously they need it to be super reliable. If someone's paying you to do a job, you need to make sure that you can get there and do the job without your equipment letting you down. And we discovered that a lot of mobile DJs actually took out 2 laptops to make sure that one would be reliable. So if you had an issue where one laptop went down, they had a backup on standby. What's great about having the 2 USB ports is you can have 2 laptops connected at the same time. So if one of them goes down, you just flip the button on the front to go over to USB-B, and then it instantly switches over to that, so you never have to worry about music running out. The other cool thing about it is you might be in a situation where you have another DJ who's taking over the set from you, or maybe you want to sort of have a bit of a battle off and go between different things. So you could have your laptop connected on A, you could have the other DJ's laptop connected on B, and then you can actually flip between them and do different sets with that, which is pretty cool as well. The other nice thing about it is you can use one of the USB ports as a iOS input. So if you have an Apple iPhone or an iPad or something, and you have the Apple camera connection kit, you can connect that over USB into there. So for instance, again, you might not have 2 laptops, but if your laptop goes down, you could have a backup mix that you've made on a iOS device, and then you can flip over to USB-B, hit play on your playlist, and again the music goes. So that's a really important feature, just because it means it's going to be super reliable in situations where obviously people are paying you to do a job. Okay, so the second really requested feature from Mobile DJs is that they wanted more microphone inputs. So microphone inputs have been around on DJ controllers for a long time, obviously, but the feedback that we've got was that for whatever kind of scenario, that often they never have enough. So, and one of the downside is normally that you might have 1 or 2 microphone inputs that you can use, but you end up having to sacrifice mixer channels on here, which might again not be possible. So the really cool thing is that we've kind of developed a way to go around that problem. So on the back of the unit we've got 2 XLR microphone inputs on it, and instead of having to take them through a channel on here, we have its own dedicated microphone section on the top here. So we can turn on and off the microphone inputs, and then we have our own level control for each of them, a 3-band EQ, and then also hardware effects, which I'll talk about in a second. And we also have a ducking control on here. So again, if you might be using it for making announcements. So you have a ducking feature that you can choose to have on those microphones, and in the menus you can adjust the level of that as well, which is really cool. Also you can choose if you want it to go through the effects or not. So the nice thing is then these channels can be routed to be wherever you want. So they can come out of the main outputs, they can come out of the booth output or the zone output, which we'll talk about again. And if you go over to the menu side on here, so if I hit my menu, and I go into a scene edit. So a scene is a way that you can save a snapshot of what you're doing. So if you're DJing if you always do a particular gig on a Tuesday night that you need a setup on, and then you do another gig on a Thursday and you need a different setup for that, you can save a setting for your Tuesday gig with all of everything how you want as a scene, and then another one for your Thursday, and when you just turn up you just recall that, and then you don't have to reprogram everything, which is really nice. So when you go to the scene edit on here, I can find all my different settings. So I could find the setting for, say, microphone 1. You can adjust the gain and the equalizer in here, but then you can also access the effects, and we have quite a number of choices of echo and reverb echo, dub echo, but then also creative effects from our VT series of vocal transformers, where you can pitch up and pitch down, change formants, so you can use it for really creative effects as well, which is pretty cool. And as I say, all of these are hardware effects that are built into the 707M, and so if you were using it in the standalone function with vinyl, the microphones are still, you can still have the effects on that, which is pretty cool. Lastly, the last cool feature about the microphone inputs is that they do actually have built-in feedback suppression as well. So this is really handy if you're in a gig and sometimes you're too close to the PA or something like that, and you speak into the microphone, you get this horrible squeal, and it just really ruins the vibe of what's going on. So we have built-in feedback suppression, which is really cool. You have a bit of control over that as well, and that's just a really handy feature, again, just for functions, because you're probably never totally in control about where you want your speakers positioned, so it's just a nice little workaround with that. So down on the front of the unit here, we've actually got a couple of extra inputs down here. So a couple of really useful ones. So this first one here is a stereo mini jack. So often you might be DJing at a bar or a club or something, or somebody's wedding or something like that, and you get a request to play a specific track. Somebody say, oh, can you play this from my phone or something like that. Normally speaking, to sort of meet that request, you would have to use one of your inputs on the back or something, which you might already be using. You might have everything queued up, and it becomes a real hassle to do that. So we have a dedicated mini jack input on the front here, which you can use to put in a source from your phone, and then route that to whichever channel that you want, which is cool, so you can meet that requirement if somebody asks you. Next to it, we've got 2 other jack inputs as well. So these can either be mono jacks, or they can be, it'll support TRS stereo jacks, or they can also be additional microphone inputs. So that actually brings the total mic inputs up to 4. And again, these can be routed to wherever you like. So again, loads of extra inputs, so whatever the scenario is, you've got it covered for whatever the requirement is for the gig. So while we're down on the front, just to have a quick look at the other features that you get on here. So we have 2 headphone sockets, 1 mini jack and 1 1/4-inch jack with a separate level. You can choose what we're using for the headphone source on here, where it's coming from the master or from your Q-Mix, and if you want it to be in split mono or in stereo. And then in the center here, you can choose which decks are controlled by the crossfader. So either A or B, you can flip between them to which control. Some people like to prefer it in a reverse action, so you can do that as well. And in the middle here, we have a control to adjust the curve. So if you do, if people really want sort of tight sort of cuts for scratching or things like that, they can do that. Or if you want smooth fades and transitions between them, you can control that as well. Okay, so another unique thing about the Roland controllers, so if you're familiar with the range at all, we have the DJ-808, the 505 and the 202 as well, and all of the Roland controllers have a bit of a music production element to them. And the 707 has some of that as well. So on the back we do have a dedicated MIDI output which sends MIDI clock from Serato. So whatever track you've got playing, you can then choose to sync any other equipment you like with that tempo, which is really cool. And on the screen you can see what the tempo of all your tracks loaded are at the moment, which is nice. But the other thing is, so that we have some features of, we have a drum machine built into it and some samples, so oscillator kind of section. So with the drum machine, so it differs a little bit from our 808 and 505, which are more production based ones where you have a dedicated TRS sequencer on the top on here. In the 707M, what we have done after consulting with Mobile DJs is we have a lot of drum patterns built into it. So on deck 3, so you can either have it set on PC to have a track from your computer, but if you want, you flip it over to TR, and if I flip over to deck 3 on here, and what we have is a bunch of drum patterns built into it. So you have 16 banks of 8 patterns. If I tweak this controller on the front on here, on the screen, it shows me a different genre. So I have sort of different kind of what we call tools, which are just general useful patterns. But then we also have dedicated ones for hip hop and trap and house, techno, EDM, reggaeton, Latin, rock, gospel, anything kind of that you might need. So say if I choose hip hop, let's go to that one and select that. So now I have 8 patterns on the front here that I can choose to play. So let's have a listen to one. What's cool about these patterns is you can use them for mixing into, either mix them alongside tracks, or you can use them just for transitions between songs where maybe you've come out of a particular song and you want to sort of keep some sort of music kind of flowing, maybe while you're making announcements, but you don't want to be doing that over another song, so they can be quite useful for that. We've also changed the way on this one that you can mix them in very easily in a very familiar way. So if you are playing a pattern, you can then adjust the speed of the drum beat playing with the platter or with the pitch fader. So I'll give you a quick example. So we have this pattern playing. I can also change the speed of it, sorry, using the pitch fader, or I can speed it up and slow it down using the jog wheels. So that's really handy. So that means that if you want to use them, you can mix them in the same way that you would do a normal song. So that's really cool. And the tempo is displayed on the screen on here. Again, if you hit the sync function in Serato, it will sync the tempo of the drum machine to be the same tempo as whatever track is playing, and then you can use these for fine adjustments or just to sort of line them up a little bit more correctly. A lot of older material, if it wasn't recorded to a click, might sometimes drift from a metronome, so you've got a bit more fine control over that, which is quite cool. On the other side on here, on deck 4, we also have another new feature, which is the oscillator section. So again, deck 4, you could set it to be a PC channel, but if I flip it over to oscillator and flip over to deck 2, this gives us a bunch of DJ specific kind of sound effects and stabs that we can use. So we've got so just sort of classic DJ stabs that you can use in the sets for different kind of functions as well. So deck 4, that is, you can use it on a PC if you just want to play another track from Serato, but if you did want to use it for a little bit more creative effects, you just flip it over to this and make sure it's on the oscillator section, and you've got a bank of different sound effects that you can play with as well. And as I just did then, you can run them through the filters, and you can also run them through the effects in Serato as well for a bit more creative control. So we just flipped the controller around now, so we've had a good talk about the inputs, but I wanted to talk about the outputs. So first thing, this is another handy feature, is that the power switch on the back is that if I switch off the unit, actually on the screen it says to me, do I really want to power it off? So again, this is just a handy feature if you're doing a performance. So in order to power it off, I actually have to push in my select button on there. So again, you're doing a sort of a performance at a club, or an event. If somebody accidentally hits your power switch, it's not going to kill the performance, which is cool. And then you can just engage it, and it goes back to where it was. So that's a really nice thing. We had a quick mention about the USB port. So as I say, you can see we've got 2 of them on here, 2 separate sound cards. This is the MIDI output, so it'll send MIDI clock information from Serato, so you can sync to drum machines or synthesizers, or anything else that can accept MIDI clock that you want to bring into your performance. And in the middle here, these are our main outputs. So we have our master output, which runs over balanced XLR, which has got great sound quality, and we also have RCA output as well if you use those. We have jack outputs for our booth output, which you can use for sort of personal monitoring if you're not working on headphones. And then also, this is the really cool unique feature, is that we have a zone output. So quite often when if you're an event DJ, you might be asked to provide, say, some music in the main room, but then asked to give music going on in another area. So it might be in a green room, or it might be you're doing a main mix in sort of the club area, but they also want some music at the bar, but with a different vibe, a bit more chilled out, not the same kind of thing. So what the zone output allows you to do is take a section of the mixer, you can route anything to it, so you could just say route deck 3 to it, or it could be 3 and 4, or whatever you like, or the microphone inputs, and route that to specifically the zone output. So you can have your main mix running, say, on channels 1 and 2, and then another mix that you're going from Serato on 3 and 4, and run that through there. And as I say, because you can route things like the microphone inputs or the other external inputs to the zone output as well, you'd be able to make announcements, say, into this other area without them coming out of the main mixer as well. So that's a really, really handy feature, and it was something that was really, really requested by the mobile DJ associations that we worked with on this. Over on here, we have our inputs. So as I said, you can use it in a standalone sort of mixer mode if you have 4 sort of actual vinyl decks or audio sources. So we have a ground for a phono input, and then we have 4 RCA inputs on here, and then these are our 2 inputs for our XLR microphones. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to like and subscribe to the DJ Shop, their channel is called DJ Shop TV, and make sure you follow that for all their latest news, and also for any other information about the 707M or any other Roland product, make sure you contact the guys at the DJ Shop. Thanks very much.